So far, I think it might be my favorite romance I've read so far this year.
This is my beautiful baby girl pumpkin.
Hey, what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another reading vlog. So this week I'm going to be doing a reading vlog for the Monster Mash Readathon. So the Monster Mash Readathon is hosted by Hannah from Hannah Blackwell, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below in case you want to check her out. But she came up with this readathon that's all about reading like spooky books that have monsters in them. So that can be like horror novels or monster romances or whatever you want to do. And she came up with this really cute little bingo board. And so my goal this week is to try and get a bingo. But I might also like fill in some other spaces too. And I came up with a little TBR as well, but my main goal for the bingo board is to get like the first row across, and so the prompts are gargoyle, orc, undead, monster, and tentacles. So I basically built a little TBR like based off of those prompts. And what I mainly want to read this week is monster romances, because I've been reading a lot of like spooky horror books and like dark academia stuff, and it's been a really long time since I read any romance, so I really wanted to prioritize that this week. This is my little TBR, and the first one I want to get to is Titan by Gillian Graves, and this is a contemporary gargoyle romance. And then the second one is Trigger Orc, and this is a orc romance set in a small town, and it's about this woman who's a single mom and this guy who's an orc, and I think he owns a bakery, and it looks really cozy and cute. And then I also want to get to Morbidly Yours, and this is a contemporary romance about a guy who is a mortician and a woman who is an American who just moved to Ireland, and it's kind of about her trying to help him find a girlfriend because he has to find somebody to marry by the time he turns 35, otherwise he can't inherit his family's mortician business. And I also want to get to The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This is another romance about undertakers, and I think it's about two people who work for like rival undertakers businesses, and they have like a hate to love romance where they write letters back and forth to each other, but like they don't know that the person that they're writing to is like that person. And then I also want to get to Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. This is a like Frankenstein-esque romance. And I think it's about this woman who is having a hard time finding a man. And so she decides to like craft her own man, like Frankenstein style, with like body parts and stuff. And I think that one's kind of like a historical romance as well. And then I also want to get to Wolf Gone Wild. And this is a shifter romance about this guy who's a wolf shifter, I think. And he is having like issues with his shifting ability, and he can hear like the voice of his wolf self like in his mind, like talking to him and stuff. And I think he has a romance with a woman who's a witch. And then I'd also like to try Claimed by the Cthulhu. This is about a woman who is a marine biologist, and she discovers this like tentacle monster man in the ocean, I think. And then I also found one called A Polar Expedition. This is about a woman who's doing research in the Arctic, and she runs into this guy who's a polar bear shifter. And then the last one I want to try to get to is The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert. So this is another novella in her little like monster novella series, and it's about one of the side characters who is a demon guy, and he has a romance with a human woman who's a healer. So that's kind of my general TBR. I think the first one I want to start with is Wolf Gone Wild, because I downloaded a bunch of these as ebooks just to like see what I thought of them, and I looked at a couple of them, and I'm already like kind of second guessing my TBR a little bit, because Claimed by the Cthulhu, I kind of was looking at the writing style and like the prologue, and then I went to Goodreads and there was like warnings in people's reviews about how bad the prologue is. So I don't know about that. And then I also looked at A Polar Expedition because I was really excited about that one. And that one, it's like you can tell that there's supposed to be footnotes because it has like the little numbers in the middle of the text, like you're supposed to refer to the footnotes, but the ebook doesn't show the footnotes. So that's cool. And then I also looked at Morbidly Yours and Wolf Gone Wild, and both of those ones looked really good. But I think I want to start with Wolf Gone Wild because I think that one's going to be kind of like more lighthearted and funny with this shifter guy like talking to his wolf self in his head. So we're going to start with that. I will say that this readathon takes place October 1st through the 10th. And I'm already like a couple days behind because it's just been a really busy week, and I had some other books that I was like trying to read that were priority for me. So we're starting the readathon a little bit late, but that's okay. We still have like a whole week left. But I want to get going on this. And then this weekend, I think we're going to do some like fun, cozy fall stuff. So I think we're going to go to a little pumpkin patch, and then we'll just see what happens from there. So I'm gonna go start Wolf Gone Wild, and I will update you when I have thoughts. This is fun. This is kind of cool though. Something on your noggin there, dear. Something. The pumpkin scavenger hunt continues. I know it. And another one, and another one, and another one. So time for a reading update. So I'm now 60% of the way through Wolf Gone Wild, and it's really, really good so far. So we're following Mateo and Evie, and Mateo is this guy who's a wolf shifter, and he's having issues because he can't shift into his wolf form, and he thinks that there's something wrong. So he has this suspicion that maybe some kind of witch put like a hex on him. And so he is having all these issues, and he can hear his wolf talking to him in his head, and his wolf's name is Alpha, and he's really like aggressive and like horny, and he's trying to get Mateo to like fight random dudes on the street, and Mateo is like, oh my god, like I cannot deal with this wolf talking to me in my head 24/7. And so he goes to this witch named Evie because he's heard that she's a hex breaker. And so he meets Evie and they start talking, and she's like, okay, this guy's really hot, but he's a werewolf and we don't usually deal with werewolves. And Evie is part of this coven of witches, and there's I think 6 of them, and they're all sisters. And her oldest sister like runs the coven, and her sister has a rule against werewolves. And so Evie can tell that Mateo like really needs help, and so she goes to her sister and is like, hey, I met this werewolf guy, he's got some kind of hex on him, something's wrong, like we need to help him. And the story kind of goes from there, and Evie and Mateo end up spending a lot of time together because Mateo's wolf is really like driving him crazy in his head, and for some reason when he's around Evie, his wolf like stops talking and is like calm. And so he is an artist, and he invites Evie to come to his like art gallery and like studio and sit with him a few hours a day to like help him calm down so he can actually work. And so they end up getting really close, and there's a lot of like sexual tension between them and a lot of fun banter, and it's a really good time so far. I'm really liking it. And there's also a part where it's set during Halloween, and they go to this really cool Halloween festival, and it's set in New Orleans. So when they go to the festival, there's all these like voodoo booths and like tarot card readers, and people are like dressed up, and it's really, really cool. But there's also a lot of tension because Evie is like into Mateo, but she's not sure if he likes back, and she's kind of concerned about his whole like alpha wolf situation because sometimes the wolf kind of just like takes over and he can't control it because of this hex, and it's very interesting. So I'm loving that so far, and I've been like binge reading it. And then I also started Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match, and so this is a kind of historical romance, and we're following these 2 siblings, Victor and Angelica. And Angelica is 24, and she's basically like a spinster. She lives at home with her brother, and their parents died when they were young, and so her brother basically raised her, and they live alone in this like crumbling mansion. And Victor is about to get married to this girl Lizzie, and so Angelica's like, okay, I really want to find a man, like I don't want to just be like the 3rd wheel in the house when Lizzie comes to live with us. And so Victor's like, okay, like I'm gonna find you a man. And he does everything he can think of. He introduces her to like all these single guys, and they go to balls and stuff, and Angelica's kind of just like not really good with talking to people. She kind of like has this list of questions that she asks all these guys when she meets them. Like she's really giving them like the game of 20 questions, and it's really off-putting, and so nobody wants to marry her even though she's rich and she's really pretty and stuff. And so Victor is a scientist, and of course Frankenstein, he has this scientific research he's doing where he's trying to create like a reanimated human being by stitching body parts together. And so Angelica is really good at sewing, and so she's helping him with these scientific projects out in the barn where they're like dismembering people and stuff. But it's not like gory or anything, it's very like snarky and fun and funny. And so the book opens with them going to the morgue, and they're basically trying to find dead men that they can stitch together to make Angelica a new man, while also like using this creation for Victor's science projects. And because he's trying to beat this rival scientist guy. And so Angelica's at the morgue, and she's looking at all these guys, like picking out which one she likes the best, and like which chest she likes the best, and all this different stuff. And so she's like assembling her own man essentially. And so she and Victor reanimate this guy one night and bring him to life, and he can like talk and stuff, and he and Angelica start like forming this relationship, and he's very confused and has like no memories, and she's like into him already because she kind of like, you know, assembled her perfect man, and she thinks he's really hot. And he's actually like really sweet and funny too. So that's going really well so far also. And the same night that they reanimated Angelica's new man, Victor also made his own monster, and it's like the Frankenstein monster, where it's this big like 7-foot tall guy and his body parts like don't really go together, and he wakes up and he's like grunting and stuff, and he's really aggressive and he can't talk. And so both of them get created on the same night, and so it's like this really stormy night, and Victor's monster runs off and Angelica's man stays, and she's like giving him a bath and trying to help him like choose a name for himself and trying to make sure that he's okay and like helping him and stuff. And so the story kind of goes from there, and we'll see what happens. But I'm really liking that so far. It's really cute actually. So far the reading is going very well. But I wanted to talk through the bingo board with you a little bit, because I was looking at this trying to figure out like what prompts these books could account for. And so I think that so far I've actually covered a lot of the prompts just with the couple of books that I've read so far. So based off of the bingo board, on the first row across, which was the one I was trying to get, I think I already covered the undead prompt with Angelica Frankenstein, and then the monster prompt with that one as well because of the Frankenstein monster that Victor makes. And then in the second row across, I got the witch prompt because Evie from Wolf Gone Wild is a witch. And then I also counted the monster one in the second row for Frankenstein's monster, and then the free space. And then the fourth row down, there's a shifter prompt, and so I counted that one for Mateo. And then the last row across is undead, witch, and shifter, which I already got those as well. So we are already making good headway on the bingo board. But I think I might rethink my TBR a little bit, because I think I told you before that some of the ebooks that I downloaded like didn't seem like they were going to be totally good. And then based off of the prompts that I still need to get for the bingos, I think I might add in a couple other things and try and like black out the board as best I can. So I really want to pick something that has a vampire in it. And I'd also like to read something that has kind of like ghosty vibes as well. And then there's another prompt that takes place on Halloween. And so I think I can count Wolf Gone Wild for that one, because it does take place on Halloween as well. But I really want to try and add a couple things to my TBR. So I was looking more into the Wolf Gone Wild series, because there's 6 books in this series. There's one for each of the witch sisters. And so book 2 is actually about one of Evie's younger sisters and her romance with a vampire guy. So I think I want to add that one to my TBR. I think it's called Don't Hex and Drive, as a really cute cover. And then there's another one I wanted to add that I just found that I thought would be really fun, and it's called Riding the Headless Horseman by Molly Likovich. And I found it on Scribd, and the audiobook is only like an hour and a half, so I think I'm going to add that to my TBR as well. And I think I'm going to add those two and then switch out a couple. So I think I'm going to switch out The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, and I'm also going to switch out A Polar Expedition, because I think those two are not going to help me complete the bingo board the way that I want to. And also I already am reading kind of like an undead one with Angelica Frankenstein. And then A Polar Expedition, the ebook, doesn't have the footnotes in it, so I think I'm going to hold off on those two. So I'm switching out the TBR. So here's the updated TBR. But I'm really excited because I think the rest of these are all going to be like really autumnal and fun, and I'm having a really good time reading a bunch of like fun spooky smut. I think this is really what I needed in October. So that's the plan. And Peyton and I also just went and bought some pumpkins. So I think tomorrow we're going to do some pumpkin carving and just like hang out and do some spooky baking and have a good time. So that's my little update, and I will probably talk to you tomorrow morning. Hi, I look a wreck, so don't look at me. But I finished 2 books since I talked to you last, and I really wanted to tell you about them. So I just finished Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross, and oh my god, it was so good. I think I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. The end was so dramatic when they finally got the curse taken off of Mateo so he could shift. Oh my god, I teared up a little bit. I don't even know why. It was just really dramatic and it was really tender, and they had this whole soulmate bond going on between Evie and Mateo, and it was so sweet, and he was so tender but also like super protective of her, and just the whole backstory on like what was going on with his curse was really cool. And I loved seeing all of the sisters in this story. They had really great relationships, and all of the sisters have these little budding romances going on, so it was kind of cool because with this first book in the series we already get to see multiple couples starting to form, so I'm really excited to read all the other books. But I think I'm gonna try to pick up book 2 next, and it's called Don't Hex and Drive, and this one's interesting because it's not really following people that we see very much in this first book. So the sister that we're following is Isadora, and she is like on vacation during this first book, so we barely see her at all, and it sounds like she has a romance with this vampire guy, and he is barely even mentioned in the first book either. And so in this first book we meet this vampire lord named Ruben, and he has a thing with the oldest sister, Jules, but he has this like vampire warrior guy who works for him, and he sends him on this mission in book 1 to retrieve this book they need to like take the curse off of Mateo. And so that guy ends up having a romance with Isadora in book 2, I think. So I think I'm going to start that tomorrow. That's kind of my tentative plan. And I also finished this other one, Angelica Frankenstein Mixer Match, and this one was also really fun. I think I'm going to give this one like a 3.5. It wasn't quite as good for me, but it was still a fun time. So the first third of this book was really good. It was very funny, they had great banter, I really enjoyed it. And then the middle third kind of dragged for me. There was this love triangle that formed in the middle, and I didn't really like that very much. This guy is introduced named Christopher, and he's like a really hot military guy, and he was kind of just thrown in there to like be a rival for Will, and he was kind of unnecessary, to be honest. I didn't really like him, and it was pretty clear from the jump that Will was going to be like the one for Angelica. And so the whole love triangle thing was like totally pointless, and I felt like Sally Thorne could have done something different with their relationship to like progress it in the middle without having a love triangle. But then the end was really interesting, like learning about who Christopher was before he died, and his memories start to come back, and he starts to figure out who he is, and that whole thing was really interesting, and it was really tender. It had a really sweet ending, and I liked that a lot. So I would give this a 3.5. It definitely was unique. I've never read a historical romance that had Halloween vibes like this, so I do recommend it for that. But overall, I think it was a good romance, but it wasn't a fave of mine. And I also started one other book called Titan, and this one is by this author Gillian Graves that I really enjoy, and I read her smutty novella Blood Moon a couple months ago and I really enjoyed it, so I really wanted to get to this. And it's a gargoyle romance, and so far it's really spicy. We're following Juliana and Titan, and so Juliana is this girl who was a child star, and her mom basically like stole all of her money, and so she's totally broke, and so she's been working as a sugar baby and going on all these dates with these really rich dudes, and a lot of them are involved in Hollywood and stuff. And so she goes on this date with this really creepy Hollywood guy, and while she's on this date, this Titan gargoyle man is like watching her because he is a gargoyle, and he has this power thing where he is looking for this secret lost relic room, and apparently the gargoyles were like created by the witches in this world, and their job is like to guard the relic room. But the relic room was like lost many years ago, and the key to the relic room was also lost, and they think that the relic room is kind of in this like pocket portal realm thing that like pops up every now and again, and they think it's going to pop up again soon. And Titan thinks that this creepy guy she's on a date with has some connection to the key to the relic room, because the key has like popped up again and the gargoyles can like sense that it's near, and so Titan is looking for it. And Titan has all of these other gargoyle brothers that he lives with and stuff, and so he's like spying on her, trying to get information on this creepy guy she's with. And so after their date ends, Titan kind of has a thing for her because he thinks she's hot, and he can see that she's like just trying to like make ends meet with these stupid dates and stuff. And so he comes up with this plan to pretend like he is a sugar daddy on this app, and so they go on a date together, and he is trying to get information about where this key to the relic room is and find out what she knows about this creepy dude, but also secretly he's like trying to get with her. And they have really good like sexual tension and stuff. It's very spicy right from the jump, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So that's been a really good time. And so I think for the rest of this vlog, my plan is to finish Titan, or at least get farther into it, and then I'd also like to start Don't Hex and Drive. And then there's 2 novellas that I want to get to. I want to get to Trick or Orc and Riding the Headless Horseman, because I just got KU, Kindle Unlimited, and there's a bunch of really good spicy little novellas on there, and so those 2 are on there as well. So I'm going to get to those hopefully tomorrow, but I think that's all I'm going to read tonight, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Here, show me your pumpkin. Ooh, spooky clown. That's awesome. I don't even know what happened to this pumpkin. Oh my god. Do you like my daughter? She's beautiful.
Jeez. See, this is my beautiful baby girl.
This is my beautiful baby girl pumpkin. She doesn't have a name yet. Maybe we'll call her Bucktooth Betty. How about that? Because of her, it's supposed to be her bottom lip, but
Looks like she has a black tooth rot.
I know, she's got the dentist really bad. It's fine, it's good, it's whatever. She's still fine. Other than that, she's great. She's got little eyebrows from 2004. It's why they're like pencil thin, but other than that, she's really a stunner, you might say. Hello, so I have a reading update for you. I just started reading Don't Hex and Drive by Juliet Cross, and I'm 50% of the way in, and so far I think it might be my favorite romance I've read so far this year. It's so good. So we're following one of the sisters that we met in the first book, and her name's Isadora, and in the first book we didn't get to see much of her because she was on vacation, and so she was barely mentioned at all in book 1. But we're following her, and she has this magic where she can like heal people, and she's called a conduit. So basically she can take energy from other things and put them into like living beings, so she can make things last longer, and she can like help plants, and she's like made the pets that they have in the family live longer, so she puts energy into the cat so that he can live a super long life. And so she makes things not immortal, but almost immortal, if that makes sense. And she's super into gardening. She has like her own little greenhouse in the backyard, and it's really cute. And she ends up riding her bike home one night from a friend's house, and she gets hit by a car. And this guy who's driving the car, his name is Devraj Kumar, and he's a vampire. And so he gets out of the car and like helps her and stuff, and they have this instant like hate to love thing going on. And Devraj is immediately really drawn to her, and she's immediately like, no, like fuck off, you hit me with your car. She hurt her ankle. She's super pissed. And he's like, let me give you a ride home. And she's like, no, like you're a stranger, I don't like you, no. And so it turns out he is friends with this other vampire guy we met in book 1, Ruben, who has a thing with Isadora's older sister. And so he calls Ruben and he's like, okay, tell Isadora that I'm not a creeper and that like I'm gonna give her a ride home. And so she talks to Ruben and she's like, okay, whatever. So Devraj gives her a ride home, and the story kind of like goes from there, and he meets her sisters and stuff, and turns out that they all know who he is because he's like a famous Bollywood actor. And he's super hot, big muscular guy, and so all of her sisters are immediately like swooning over this dude. And Isadora is having absolutely none of it. She's like, hell no, this guy's an asshole. He drives a Lamborghini, and she can tell that he's super powerful, and she's just absolutely totally against it. And so then he basically makes it his mission to like make it up to her. So he makes cookies and brings them over to the house, and he's always kind of like hanging around trying to like talk to her, and they run into each other on the street, and he's like, let me take you to lunch, and she's like, no. Oh my god, it's great. They have this just great banter too, and it's wonderful. And at one point she's like walking down the street, and this piece of paper falls out of her purse, and it's like a pros and cons list about him. And he realizes that she has this assumption that he's this super arrogant asshole because he's super hot, he's rich, he's famous, he's got a Lamborghini, he's super powerful, he's got really powerful friends. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna have to really show her like my true colors, otherwise she's never gonna like me back. And so he really goes out of his way to like woo her and be really sweet to her and her sisters and stuff. And also the two of them get pulled into this not murder investigation. The two of them get pulled into this investigation that's going on that Ruben is doing, because there's these human women who are going missing in the city, and they have a feeling that this pack of rogue vampires is kidnapping women. And so she gets pulled into it because she's got this healing magic. And Devraj, as it turns out, is not just a vampire. He's this special kind of vampire called a Stygorn, where they're super strong and powerful, and you have to train for like years to become a Stygorn. And so he's done that, and so he's super strong. He's got these persuasion abilities, and he is also like a tracker. So basically he gets hired by other people like Ruben to go and hunt down supernatural criminals. And so he gets hired by Ruben to help with this case. And so the two of them kind of have to team up to figure out what's going on with the girls, and Isadora is trying to like heal them and stuff when they do find them, and it's really good. So they've got this investigation going on, and then they also have this like really good hate to love, grumpy sunshine dynamic going on, because Isadora is really introverted and she is kind of grumpy, and she doesn't really like people, especially strangers. She's not into like talking to people she doesn't know. And Devraj is super social, and he's like the hot popular guy, whatever. And there's also this other part where Isadora orders a vibrator, and it accidentally gets sent to his house because he's renting the house next door to theirs, so they're like neighbors too. And so he realizes that it's a package, and he thinks that maybe somebody sent him something, so he opens it and he sees it's a vibrator, and then he realizes that it has her name on it, and he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to milk this. And so he gives her a lot of shit for it, and like makes her come over and get it from his house and stuff. And then he basically like propositions her and is like, not to flex, but like, I could probably do better than your vibrator, like, you know, let me know if you ever want to mess around. And so she like takes him up on this offer of a one-night stand, and things get very spicy, and it's very fun. And Devraj Kumar is my new favorite book boyfriend, I think. He's like the full package, you know. He's got the man bun, he's got a Lamborghini, he's super hot, he's super sweet, he cooks a lot. He makes like traditional Indian food and stuff, and cookies, and he's just super sweet to her and her whole family. and he's amazing, and he's really smart too, and super powerful and cool. So anyways, I'm absolutely loving their romance. I think it's probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. It's really, really good. I know I'm only like halfway through, but I'm already absolutely loving it. And the magic in here is really cool too, because we're getting to see more of different creatures and stuff. So at one point they go to this like vampire den, and it talks more about how the vampires feed and like how they find human hosts to drink blood from. And there's a whole like societal thing around that, and it's really interesting. So far I'm loving this. So I think my plan is to try and finish that, and then I'll probably get more into some of the shorter novellas that were on my TBR. So that's the plan, and I will talk to you later. Hi, so I just finished Trick or Orc, and I sat down and read the whole thing in one sitting because it was so good. It's a really short Halloween novella, and it's an orc romance, and this is the first time I've ever read a romance about an orc, and it was really good. So we're following Cassie Edwards, and she has just gone through this really bad divorce, and she has 3 kids, and she's a single mom now. Her ex-husband cheated on her while she was pregnant, and then left her for his mistress because he got her pregnant too at the same time. So that's pretty cool. So Cassie is like not doing so hot, and she is talking to her friend, and her best friend like was divorced and moved to this orc village and married this orc guy, and her friend is like, you know, move to the orc village with me, it'll be great, it's in a different realm where nobody knows you, you can have a fresh start with your kids. And so Cassie's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll go. And so she goes, and her friend ends up giving her a job in this bakery that she owns, and there's a guy who works there who's a baker, and he's an orc, and he's really hot, and she's met him before because she went to the orc village like the previous year when she was pregnant with her ex, and so she's met this orc guy, and so he thinks that she is still married, but he doesn't know that they've gotten divorced. And so the whole time that he was around her last year, he was totally into her, but he was like, okay, well, like she has a mate already, like we can't do this, whatever. And now he is forced to be around her in this bakery because she is helping, and she's like helping make coffee and cooking food and stuff. And so they're around each other every day, and they have this like close proximity thing going on, and she's really into him. And when they first see each other again, he like makes her a special cupcake and stuff, and it was super cute. And there's also this fall festival going on in the orc village, and so it's super autumnal and cozy with the bakery vibes and everything. And this orc guy Graval is really good with her kids too, and he's super sweet, and they have this like blood bond going on, and it's really, really cute. They go on all these little like adventures around the village and stuff, and she gets to meet the other orcs, and they have this really cool culture with the orcs around like their mating traditions and stuff. They have like facial tattoos and piercings and stuff. It's really cool. So I really enjoyed it. I think I'm gonna give it like a 4.5. It was wonderful. And there's a bunch of other books in the series. This is actually book like 6.5, but you can read it as a standalone, but you get to see a lot of other couples in it that I think there are also other books for earlier on in the series. So I think I'm going to go back and read some of those, but highly recommend this if you're looking for something to read during fall, because it's super autumnal and cozy and kind of a slower read too, and it was really great. So highly recommend that. And I think my plan is to pick up some other novellas. So now that I have Kindle Unlimited, I have all the things. So I think the next one I want to do is probably Riding the Headless Horseman, because that one's also really short, and then I'll update you when I've either started that or finished that. I'm kind of binge reading all the novellas right now. So that's the plan, and I will update you when I read something else. Hello, so I have a reading update, and then we're going to wrap up this vlog. So I finished Riding the Headless Horseman, and I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It was okay. It wasn't great for me. It's following this woman who's a witch, and she's living in Salem, Massachusetts, and one night on Halloween she gets abducted by the Headless Horseman. And she's really adamant about like, I don't believe in the Headless Horseman and whatever, and then she gets kidnapped by him and she's like, oh shit, I guess he is real. And he basically takes her back to his like bone mansion and is like, you're gonna be my woman and you don't have a choice. And things kind of go from there, and she's into him, but there's not a lot of verbal consent, which I didn't super love. And there's also not really BDSM elements in here. I mean, there are, but some of the other stuff that he did was just kind of weird. Like at one point he like drips hot candle wax on her nipple, and I'm like, that's not cute, but okay. And I didn't really like that, and I don't know, it could have used more consent, and it could have been fleshed out more, and I think it would have been better. But I did enjoy his backstory on like why he became the Headless Horseman, and I think I can count it for the ghost prompt for the bingo board, because he's kind of like, he's dead, but he didn't like move on into the afterlife. He's kind of in between, so he feels solid when she like touches him, but his skin is kind of like see-through because he was a human guy and he died. And so I think that's kind of a cool concept. So I thought his backstory was really cool, but overall I would give it a 3. It was fine if you're looking for like a smutty short novella for Halloween, but other than that, it was kind of just okay. And then I also just finished Don't Hex and Drive this morning, and I'm gonna give it 4.5. I wanted to give it a 5 so bad, but the first half of the book I absolutely loved. That part was 5 stars. And then the last half of the book was more of a 4 for me, because Isadora just pissed me off in the last half of the book. Devraj was an absolute king as always, but she, oh my god. It was so obvious that he was like totally down bad for her, and she was like, oh, I think I'm gonna push him away because I don't think he's gonna stay in New Orleans, like for his job and stuff. He usually travels a lot to like take down supernatural criminals and stuff. And so he was kind of proposing more of like just a friends with benefits thing, but you could tell that he wanted more than that, but he wasn't offering it because she was like pushing him away a lot. And she was just totally like, oh, he's gonna leave, and I don't want to be heartbroken when he leaves, so I just don't want anything to do with him. And I was like, ma'am, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, you guys are obviously like mates. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. But anyways, she literally goes on dates with other men in front of him. And he finally gets to the point where he's like, okay, seriously, for real, like, I want to be with you. And she just never expresses her feelings to him at all. Like, all she had to do was be like, hey, I want to date you. Like, are you down? And no, instead she was like, let me date another vampire right in front of him and just see what he does. Ma'am, when you have a sexy vampire who's in love with you, you don't date random other men from dating apps. You don't. I'm so sorry, but it's unacceptable behavior. So that was really irritating. And I just felt like the ending was kind of weird because of her immature behavior. Sorry, but it's true. So that was a little bit irritating, but overall, I do like them, and I love Devraj as a main love interest. I think he's incredible, and there was some really cute stuff at the end, so I did like it, but I think it's probably on par with the first book in terms of, like, the series. And then I also started Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks, and I'm only a few chapters into this, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So we're following this woman who moves from the US to Ireland, and I think she's from Texas, and so she brings like her cowboy boots and stuff, and she just moved into this new apartment. She's trying to get settled, and across the street there's this inn. And one day she gets a package on her doorstep, and she thinks it's like one of her moving boxes or something. And she opens it up, and in the box is a bunch of black body bags. And she's like, what the hell is this? This is not my stuff. And she realizes that it's supposed to be delivered to the inn across the street. And she's like, well, that's creepy, but I want to be like good neighbor, so I'm going to go deliver it to them. And so she goes over there, and she meets this guy who works there. And turns out he bought the inn, and his family transitioned the inn into like a funeral home. And so he works on like embalming bodies and stuff in the basement. And so that's why he needs the body bags. And so she goes over and she meets him, and he's like been working on a body all day. He like stinks like formaldehyde, and she's like, this is weird, but she's really like a sweet, chatty kind of gal. And so she's just kind of like chatting with him and stuff, and he's kind of immediately drawn to her. And he's kind of
more shy and reserved, and so I think it might be a little bit of like a grumpy sunshine situation, but so far it's really cute. I'm enjoying the main characters, and I think that the whole like mortuary business setting is going to be really cool. So I'm into that so far, and I'm also still working my way through Titan by Gillian Graves. I haven't gotten any farther in the audiobook, but I was really enjoying that as well. And then I also started Claimed by the Cthulhu by Wendy Go, and I got through the prologue, through the first chapter, and then I DNF'd it because it was giving me the ick. So we're following this guy who is this tentacle creature called a Cthulhu, and his species does this annual mating ritual thing where they all go to this one island and mate with each other, but he doesn't have a mate, and so he goes every year, and the mating is like a required bodily thing, like you can't resist it even if you want to, but he doesn't really want to be doing it, and so he goes and meets up with this other Cthulhu every year, and she actually has a wife who I think is a human, and so she also doesn't want to do the mating thing because she has a human mate, and you have to like mate with the Cthulhu during the mating season. It's like a mating frenzy situation, and so she goes and hooks up with him once a year because neither one of them really want to be there. But it's kind of gross because she talks about how she's been like dreading it all year, like she does not want to sleep with him, and she like brings her human mate to the island to try and like make herself feel better about it, and her mate like understands and everything, but it's just like kind of gross. And the guide talks about how like even if there's like a woman who doesn't want to, like their species, the males will like force themselves on the women anyways because it's part of like the mating frenzy thing, and it's just gross, and it was just giving me like really rapey weird vibes, and I don't think it was necessary at all. Like I think we could have just started with him trying to find a mate. Like why did that whole thing need to be included? I don't know, but I didn't like it and it gave me the ick, and so I said no. And then the last one I wanted to read was The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert, and I tried to start that one too, and I just was not really feeling the writing style. I'm not DNFing it or anything, but I just think that I want to wait and pick it up another time. And so I think overall on my TBR I did pretty good. I finished Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match, Wolf Gone Wild, Trick or Work, Riding the Headless Horseman, and Don't Hex and Drive. And then I started Titan, Morbidly Yours, and then DNF'd Claimed by the Cthulhu, and I'm going to wait on The Demon's Bargain. So I think that's kind of everything. At least I tried everything, and I feel really good about that. And then in terms of the bingo board, I almost blacked out the whole board. So I got a bunch more prompts completed with the last few books that I finished. So I finished the Orc prompt with Trick or Work, and the Ghost prompt with Riding the Headless Horseman, and the Vampire prompt with Don't Hex and Drive, and the Gargoyle prompt with Titan, and then I'm also going to count the Tentacle prompt for Claimed by the Cthulhu because there was like tentacle stuff happening in the part that I read. So on the whole, the only two prompts I didn't hit were Demon Devil and Academic Setting. And I think I'm okay with that because I don't really know how to find a monster romance that has an academic setting. And then the demon one, I was going to read the Katie Robert one, but I don't really want to. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I feel really good about how much reading I did in this vlog, and I feel like I'm getting a better grasp on like what I like in monster romances. And I'm really excited to read some more orc romances too, because I really like Trick or Work a lot. And I'm also really excited to continue with the Stay a Spell series by Juliet Cross because I really did enjoy Wolf Gone Wild and Don't Hex and Drive quite a bit too. So I'm excited with where I'm at, and I think I'm gonna leave it there. So if you made it to the end of this vlog, leave me a purple like devil emoji in the comments. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!